Hello everyone, it's Mr. Leventhal here, and today we're going to be talking about the first standard in the history of Southwest Asia unit. We're going to be talking about how European partitioning of the Ottoman Empire in the Middle East led to lots of regional conflict. So let's get started. So the Ottoman Empire was a Muslim kingdom, so they were Muslims, they practiced Islam, and it started in modern-day Turkey in the year 1299. You guys can see here in this map, this picture here. Here in Turkey, this little green area, that's where the Ottoman Empire started. And it grew humongously. I mean, look how massive that got. By the year 1683, it was 6 times larger than the state of Texas. I mean, it was in Europe, in the Middle East, in Africa. It was massive, one of the largest empires in history. They also became very wealthy. You know, they controlled the trade routes. Look at the location of them on this map. It was right at the crossroads between Europe, Asia, and Africa. And so everything that got traded had to go through them. And they made a ton of money by taxing people to cross through. They also spread Islam all over. So that was something very important to know about the Ottomans. They were also known for their architecture and art. Here in this picture, you can see the Mosque of Suleiman. Suleiman, I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but that was one of the Ottoman leaders, probably the most famous Ottoman leader. And this is one of the most beautiful buildings in Istanbul, which is in Turkey. Look how beautiful this mosque is. And you guys know what a mosque is, right? It's a place of worship for which religion? That's right, Islam. Good job. Okay, so reasons for the decline of the Ottoman Empire. I mean, they had all this land. They were rich. What happened? How come they started to shrink down? Well, there's 3 reasons we're going to talk about. The first one is because there was different trade routes discovered. With the discovery of the Americas, there was also other trade routes that they could go through, like sailing around Africa. And so just sailing in general and getting resources from the New World, from South America, North America. So now they didn't rely on the Ottomans as much. Also, they fell behind in technology. Europe's technology was advancing a lot. They were getting better technology, better tools, better weapons. And the Ottomans just kind of slacked in that aspect. And also increased nationalism from many different ethnic groups who lived in the Ottoman Empire. Remember, the Ottomans captured and conquered all this land and all these people, and they kind of controlled them. And the people who were living in these regions weren't really identifying themselves as Ottomans. They were like, no, I'm not an Ottoman, I'm an Arab, I'm a Kurd, I'm other things. So they weren't really super happy to be conquered by them, and they kind of wanted freedom and independence, and they were kind of rebelling against the Ottomans. Okay, so here, let's take it in this picture you see in 1913, so way 600 years after the Ottoman Empire started. This is all that they had left. I mean, they didn't conquer Persia. Remember, this wasn't Iran back then. It was still the kingdom of Persia. And you had the Ottoman Empire was just like Turkey and a little bit around like Syria and Iraq. Well, I mean, all of Iraq. And where Jordan is, Lebanon, Israel, and part of Saudi Arabia near the Red Sea. So this is what the Ottomans conquered in 1913. That's all they had left. Now, they joined the Central Powers in World War I, which started in 1914, I believe. So they teamed up with Germany and Austria-Hungary to fight the war against the British, the French, and the Russians. And they lost. The Ottomans lost, the Germans lost, the Austrian Hungarians lost, and the British and the French and the Russians won. So after the Ottoman Empire lost World War I, they lost a bunch of their land. And who took control of it? Mostly Great Britain and France. Here in this picture you can see some like Ottoman military guys who participated in World War I. So just to look at it again, this is how it started, right? A tiny little area of Turkey in the year 1300. Then it got humongous by 1683. This was like the peak of the Ottoman Empire, just massive. And then by 1913, this is what they had left, right? Then they lost the war, okay? This is World War I. This is the picture. It was a 4-year war earlier. And then this is what they retained, what they kept after the war. Just this part of Turkey. By 1920, that's all that the Ottomans had left. Right? They had this before the war, and then boom, that's what they had left. Okay? So they lost most of its land, but they got to keep Turkey. And then what happened with the rest of the land? Great Britain and France took it over, and they partitioned. Okay, you need to know what this word means. Partition is to break something up into pieces, to divide it up, to split it up, to split apart. Okay, so when you have a pizza, right, you partition it. When you slice a pizza into different slices, that's partitioning a pizza, breaking it up into sections. And that's what the Europeans did with this land. So the British, if you look at the map, the British got Mesopotamia, which means the land between two rivers, right, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. That would be Iraqi controlled. They also got control of Palestine, which is modern day Israel, but also Jordan. And they call that Transjordan, was like what they call that piece of land there. And then the French got control of Syria, and I believe they got control of Lebanon too. Pretty sure. I don't know why it doesn't say that on this map, but they got control of Syria. And then Turkey was just like what the Ottomans kept. Here you can see another map. Yeah, here you can see 1922. The French have Syria and Lebanon, and the British have Palestine, Jordan, and Iraq. Okay? So they got control of these lands, and they see how they have these borders here. When the Ottomans ruled this land, there wasn't these split borders, right? There was just a bunch of land, and people lived there, right? Ethnic groups lived there: Arabs, Kurds, Persians, Jews. All these people, Armenians, they all lived there, Turks. But afterwards, the British and the French took that land and they split it up, and they created these territories with these artificial political borders. And this was kind of new to the people living there, right? So let's continue. So when these Europeans made these borders, they didn't see who lived there. They didn't see, oh, the Kurds live here, the Arabs here live here, the Sunni Muslims live here, the Shia Muslims here. They didn't even look at these people, right? They all they cared about really was oil and land. And so they split this up, and this was a big problem. It created a big problem. They didn't care about the ethnic groups and religious groups that were living there when they decided to partition this land, right? And that's really important for you guys to remember, okay? And because of the way they partitioned the land, the Europeans, they split it, there's been tons of problems ever since. After World War I, they made these borders, and it's been massive problems. So here it says, they cared more about the oil. They divided the land up on the oil, the territory, the rivers, the resources, and not really about the people. They didn't care about the people. They didn't ask, oh, hey, are you guys Kurds? Yeah, do you want to get your own country? Yeah, sure, we'll let you have this. Oh, you guys are Sunni and you're Shia? Okay, we'll give you your own country. No, this is not what the Europeans did, the French and the British. They were just like, oil, land, we own this land, we gained it from the Ottomans, let's do this, okay? So the Kurds, they were split up, right? The Kurds were an ethnic group, which you guys learned about earlier this year, and they were split up, right? They were split between Turkey, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Azerbaijan, and Armenia, I think. And it was horrible. I mean, imagine you're there with all your friends, all your different people from your same ethnic group, and then boom, you're now separated. To get to another country, you need like a passport, you need to go through the border control. It's a mess. So these guys were upset. They had been promised to get their own country, which they want to call Kurdistan. They had been promised by the Europeans that they would, and then because they actually fought against the Ottomans during the war, and then the Ottomans lost, and then the Kurds didn't get their country. So they're super sad. I mean, look at these Kurdish dudes here. Very sad. So this is what the territory where the Kurds live. It says Kurdistan. It's not an official country. They wish it was. It's just a region where the Kurdish people live. It's a mountainous region. And unfortunately for them, they don't have control of their own people, right? They don't govern themselves. They have to follow the rules of the Turkish government, the Syrian government, the Iraqi government, the Iranian government. And, a lot of times they're treated like second-class citizens. And the Kurds have been trying to get independence ever since, and talking to these governments. And there's a lot of regional conflict of that. So that's what happened with the Kurds because of the European partitioning. All right. And here in Iraq, and as you can see, this is the flag of Iraq, and this is a map showing you that a lot of different groups got merged together into one country, right? You have the Kurds in the north, and then you have Sunni and Shia Muslims, which before this, they didn't really have problems because they had their own land, they had their own rules, but now they got grouped together in Iraq, and the leaders of Iraq, sometimes they're Sunni and they favor the Sunni Muslims. They're not as fair to the Shia Muslims. Or when there's a Shia leader, he's not as nice to the Sunnis and he favors the Shias. So they've been kind of having different leadership, and Iraq is like almost 50% Sunni and Shia. I mean, it's not exactly, but it's probably the country that has most balance between Sunni and Shia. And these guys still argue, they fight. ISIS, the terrorist organization, is in Iraq a lot of times. I think they're Sunni Muslims, and these guys like hate Shias, and they battle and they fight, and it's just a big mess. And we'll talk about the Iraqi government. That's how you say someone from Iraq is he's Iraqi. Every time I say that, people are like, what? Like my students. But yeah. So the Great Britain and France, they thought they had done a good job. Oh, we broke up the land, 50-50, all good, cool. But the people living there, the Arabs, the Kurds, all these people were upset. The Persians were fine because they had Persia, which turned to Iran, and they didn't mess around, the Europeans, with them, because that was an Ottoman. But all the other people there were super upset, the Sunni, the Shia, the Kurds, and it's been a big problem. In fact, we'll talk more about Israel and Palestine as well in the next video, but there's been massive problems with the different ethnic and religious groups. But yeah, that's the video. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you can go back and watch different parts of this. Make sure you took notes. Make sure you took notes about the Ottoman Empire, their religion, where they started, how they became so powerful and wealthy, why they declined, why they finally fell apart. You should also know what nationalism is, okay, which is to have great pride in your own people and to try to get independence and be free for your own ethnic group or your own country. You should also know about the Europeans who partitioned the land, know that word partition, and know about the conflict that it caused, like the Kurds getting split apart and the Sunni and Shia getting grouped together in Iraq, and that leading to lots of issues. All right, guys, thanks for watching.